How to repair with avoidant partners. So a lot of my students, when they come to me, it's usually because they already have a pretty deep sense of resilience. They're usually pretty empathic individuals. They may have a little bit of ambition, right? They're into personal development and into self-help. So they've got a lot of tools. And oftentimes they're even great communicators, and they really deeply care about and are empathetic towards their partner's traumas. They're not going to shy away or disappear at the first sign of trouble. And these are tremendous strengths that we get to work with. But sometimes what happens is we wind up taking on too much of the emotional labor in the relationship. They wind up appeasing in order to smooth things over and get past, conflicts. But appeasement is not a way of repairing a conflict. Repairing a conflict requires confronting what the rupture was about, exploring what were the deeper underlying emotional needs that got stimulated in that rupture, and is there a common ground or a way that we can find some common ground to move forward, and what does that require? Now, of course, this is going to really depend upon how deep the rupture goes, what needs and values and priorities butted up against each other here in that conflict. Now, this is where in my one-on-one courses and in the Courageous Communicator, we talk about it a slightly different way, but we take a look at, what are your values and how highly do you prioritize them? Because sometimes we may have a value that we carry, but it's not like super high on the priority list, right? Like I value someone who's on time, but if they're running late, it's not a deal breaker for me. Whereas I also value someone's loyalty, and if they're disloyal, that's a much higher priority for me. If they're disloyal, that's a deal breaker. So it's important to kind of examine like what are our values and how highly do we prioritize those. Now, if we are unclear about those things, our needs usually are unclear, our boundaries around them usually are unclear, and then our emotional responses to things can be inconsistent because we are not sure how highly we actually value those things. And that's especially true if we're feeling flooded with things like attachment anxiety on a regular basis. Incidentally, avoidance is also an expression of attachment anxiety. So it's just a way of dealing with it. So conflict can be really challenging for folks that have insecure attachment styles because of the nature of the original wound. So for folks that have anxious attachment, it usually evolves into a deep fear of abandonment or being rejected. And so there's this heightened need for reassurance and closeness, especially. And so that's what we're going to have. That's the need we're going to have to address if we're going to try to repair for the anxious partner. For the avoidant partner, usually they feel that discomfort with emotional closeness. And so they feel kind of flooded. So they pull back and they disconnect themselves from their emotions. And they avoid conflict because they feel like it stimulates those parts of them that they haven't learned how to manage or navigate. Now, this is where sometimes there's a lot of confusion around the way avoidants approach conflicts, because some say, well, avoidant partners have these walls for boundaries. They have these emotional walls up and they're impenetrable. I want to tweak that image for you. They're not really walls. They're more like fragile. They're more like fragile glass panes. Okay. So avoidant partners have boundaries, yes, but they're rigid. And because they are rigid, they're brittle. And because they're brittle, they're fragile. So this is why they pull back so far and so much, because they don't actually have the tools to modulate the flow of energy when they feel a big feeling. Because what is a feeling? A feeling is energy moving through the body. So this is why repair can be so challenging for them, and why it's important to use soft strategies in communication to make it at least somewhat appealing to try to repair. And of course, we have our folks with the disorganized, sometimes called fearful avoidant attachment. They will typically display a mix of what are called activating and deactivating strategies in a conflict, meaning they may 1 minute respond the way an anxious person might, which is to try harder or cling tighter. And then the next minute, they're doing a more deactivating avoidance strategy, like pulling back or emotionally withdrawing. While they may demonstrate kind of a little bit of both, usually it stems from a a more chaotic internal experience. They haven't quite established a safe proximity as yet. So avoidant partners and anxious partners, at least they know how close or how far they need to be to feel safe. Disorganized partners never really determine that. Their behaviors actually stem from a more deeply ambiguous or ambivalent space, right? Emotional space. So that's why their responses can be predictably unpredictable. Because of that, when you're trying to repair with someone, it's useful to know about these strategies. So we already talked about avoidant partners requiring soft strategies in communication, which again are when we're emphasizing things like appreciation, respect, and a partner's autonomy and offering choices by expressing curiosity, right? Now, for anxious partners, there is also safe strategies. So safe strategies are when we are establishing safety by offering reassurance, validating their feelings, and basically making sure that they feel connected, that the connection feels stable enough in order to explore difficult feelings. So let's say an anxious partner says something like, I feel like you're not there for me anymore. A safe strategy in response would be to say, your feelings are really important to me. Tell me more about how I can support you so that we can feel more connected, because I want to be there for you. Another thing they might say, why didn't you reply to my text earlier? I was so worried. So in this case, you might say, I'm sorry I didn't respond right away. I know that waiting around can be difficult. I wasn't ignoring you. I was really caught up at work, but let's agree on a time when we can check in on busy days so you don't have to worry like that, right? Showing some kind of generosity in the relationship. You care about their feelings. You want to contribute to their good feelings. Avoidant partners struggle with offering safe strategies because they too struggle with boundaries, and they don't realize that this is not an abandonment of themselves. This is a generosity that they are offering. And you can show up with this kind of generosity when you realize that you have all these emotional resources. Sure, I can set a time for checking in on busy days. Like, that's not hard. That's like minimal effort. To help my partner feel more secure, I'm glad that they told me what they needed so that I can contribute to their sense of stability in this relationship, because I love them and I care about contributing to their good feelings. And it would bother me if I contribute to their stress. It matters to me. So a check-in, at a set time and day when I know I'm busy, that's the least I can do. No sweat off my back. Whereas someone who's more avoidant, like, oh, they're trying to control me. They're so needy. I can't deal with this. I don't want to have to be obligated. They have all these stories around it, right? And it's because they feel an internal sense of lack. They don't have access to their resources in the way that I just demonstrated. Or maybe we're trying to engage with someone who's more disorganized or fearful avoidant. That takes a little more finesse because they don't have a more consistent and frequent way of responding. You're going to have to be really present in the moment, and you're just going to have to feel into which strategy are they eliciting right now. So if they are using avoidant deactivating strategies, meaning I feel them pulling away, dismissing, disconnecting, stonewalling, what have you, then a soft strategy is called for. If they are fighting with you, clinging, getting demanding, or they seem to be escalating in some way, safe strategies are what you want to use. So you're going to have to kind of be familiar with both and have a sense of what's called for in the moment. Now, again, this comes back to the thing I always get, well, what if this doesn't work? I've tried these things and it doesn't work. Remember, what is our goal and our intention with effective communication? What is the goal and the intention with effective communication? Are we magicians? If we're not magicians, then what are we? Are we investigators? What are we investigating? Yeah, to get information. The goal and the intention of effective communication is to get information, to get at the truth of our compatibility and what's possible. And anything that stands in the way of that and tells you that you have more control than you really do, or that you should have said, done, been something better than you could have affected the outcome and gotten what you wanted and da-da-da-da-da, That's attachment anxiety, and it's probably some protector part of you that's historical, right? And now you've got information not only about them, but you've got information about you. Oh, okay, so there's a lesson for me to learn. There's some information for me to dive into. What dusty corner am I now being called to sweep out so I can make more room for the massive energetic flow of love, light, connection, reciprocity, spiritual expansion, and growth in a relationship as possible, and that I'm asking for? Well, excellent. So it's not that I'm failing at this. It's not that I attracted yet another incompatible relationship. It's that each relationship now is calling in with greater frequency and increasing acceleration, partners that are showing me where and how I'm pinching myself off and how I can start to expand into that. And to improve my discernment of who is a good match for me. The other thing we're not doing is learning these strategies to learn how to cope better. It annoys me to no end. We're not learning these skills to cope better. I don't want you to learn these skills so that you can learn how to be in a unfulfilling and dysfunctional environment better. Meaning now you're learning how to detach from your own signals. You're learning how to detach from your needs. You're learning how to want less for yourself. Because if I just wanted and needed less, then this would work, right? That's not what that's not what we're here to teach you how to do. Because what are you doing now? Well, now you've just learned all these insights to practice dissociation and to cut yourself off from your signals. And I'm telling you, that's going to bite you in the ass in one way or another. It's either going to explode at some point or it's going to make you sick, physically sick, because you are ignoring the signals you're getting. Okay. So we're not learning how to cope better. We are acquiring information, and your body's going to give you a lot of that information too. Well, okay. So Briana, I've learned these skills. I know that I'm learning these skills to learn the truth of our compatibility. And I want to show up with an air of generosity, and I want to allow my partner to make mistakes, and I want there to be room for them to allow me to make mistakes. Well, what happens if it's been like 3 to 6 months and it's the same shit over and over again? Well, now you know. Everyone's going to have a different barometer for that. Some people are going to be like, I give it 3 weeks and that's it. Other people are going to be like, I'll give it, 3 months, 6 months, what have you. You will know your threshold for that. But basically, you give it a little bit of time, give it some time. And then you need to look at, as much as I'm showing up with all the skills that I've learned, do they still dismiss my needs and my feelings? Do they accuse me of every time I try to express something that I am trying to manipulate them or just make it all about me, right? Even when you're just expressing a feeling. Are they passive aggressive in some kind of compliant way? Yeah, sure. Okay, great. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. And then they go about either not doing it or undermining your own success in some way, suggesting a resistance to genuine partnership, or that they haven't been completely upfront with you. Maybe they continue to meet you with some kind of avoidance or emotional withdrawal, right? Maybe they walk out, stonewall you, give you the silent treatment, or threaten, oh, well, fine, then I guess I'll just go seek comfort with somebody else. Or they throw the ending the whole relationship at you, ultimatum business, okay? These are behaviors that communicate a lack of respect, that intentionally withdraw the safety in the relationship to keep you off center. They're trying to emotionally manipulate you and to somehow use their responsiveness to get you to do something or be something or give up on something. These are behaviors that signal they are not ready. They're not ready, and because of that, they're not compatible with you. And the thing is that when you stay with someone who's showing up in all these ways and they're clearly not ready, when you stay with them, what does that mean? You're not ready either. Because when you're with someone who does not make the effort to show up and to look too closely and to put enough effort in, parts of you remain unchallenged, unexposed, and in some ways safe from real intimacy and vulnerability, because it's not possible with this person. And you've given it enough time, energy, and effort to find out that it isn't. So if you're still there, it means that there's a part of you, as much as the rest of you is ready, there's still a part of you that isn't. And that means that that's sort of like the last holdout. And that may be the gift of this relationship altogether, is to confront what part of me is still afraid as well. And facing and confronting that part of you is likely going to involve a grief process. And it may look like, oh, I'm grieving this relationship. It might look like that on the surface, but the reality is you're grieving something. You're grieving the loss of something that you always wanted but never quite had. And now you got to let it go so that you can invite in something new and more expansive and transcendent that will allow you to have that intimacy. Okay. And so we kind of have to face that truth with courage and knowing it's not going to happen overnight. You know, it's not like a light switch. It is something that typically involves a grief process. And when we grieve relationships like this, it's not just the person, the loss of the person we're grieving. It's parts of ourselves that we gave away or that we feel like we've lost, but we haven't really. We're grieving the loss of these ideas of things that we thought we wanted, and we have to let that go. And now we have to open up to what's really available. Also, remember to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. I put out videos once a week and I wouldn't want you to miss out.